All right, so on number 40, there's multiple ways to do this. Um, I like to break them down personally first like this so I can see what it is. You can break them down after, but I like to break them down 2 times 5. 8 is 4 times 2. And then 4 is 2 times 2. So there's a pair of 2's, they come out, so that's 2 square roots of 2. 10 didn't break down, so it's still 10. Square root of 50 is 5 times 10, 5 times 2. So there's a pair of 5's, they come out. And 20 is 4 times 5, and 4 is 2 and 2, so there's a pair of 2's, so they come out. So I like to break it down first and then go ahead and multiply. I'll show you, I guess I won't show you on another one, but you could do this same problem and multiply them together first and then break it down. So whatever you'd like to do. So now I'm going to multiply things. So square root of 10 times 5 square roots of 2. So I multiply the 10 and the 2 together. So that's going to be 5 square roots of 20. Now I'm going to go the square root of 10 times negative 2 square roots of 5. And it's the 10 and the 5 that are going to be multiplied together. So that makes negative 2 square roots of 50. So that's the first one being multiplied to both of them. So now I'm going to take 2 square roots of 2 times 5 square roots of 2. So the outside numbers, 2 and 5, they multiply together. So 2 times 5 is 10. And the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 4. And now I'm going to take this 2 square roots of 2 times negative 2 square roots of 5. So 2 times 2 is 4, but it's a negative because it's a positive times a negative. 4, and then 2 times 5 underneath is 10. So now I'm going to break things down. So 20 is 5 times 4, 2 and 2. So there's a pair of 2's, they multiply the 5 that's out here. So 2 times 5 is 10, and this 5 doesn't come out. 50 is 25 times 2, so 5 and 5. This 5 multiplies the 2 out here, so that's a negative 10 square roots of 2. You can't tell what that says. Pair of 5's. Now on this one, 4 is 2 times 2, so there's a pair of 2's come out, they multiply the 10, so that's 20 square roots of 2. I mean, no square root. So there weren't any left over, so there's no square root. And 10 is 2 and 5, so it doesn't break down. So it's minus 4 square roots of 10. So I'm looking at this, there's none of the same type of square root stuff. So there are no like terms, so I can't simplify it anymore, so that is my answer. On 41, it wants us to add, and it says 3x cubed. So realize the x cubed is x times x times x, so there's one pair that comes out. So that's 3x left inside and an x on the outside. 12 is 4 times 3, so 2 and 2, so there's a pair of 2's that come out, and they multiply this x. So that's plus 2x, and then the 3 and this x are left over, square roots of 3x. 75 is 25 times 3, which is 5 times 5. So there's a pair of 5's, they come out and multiply the 2. So that's negative 10. And x cubed is x times x times x, so there's a pair of x's that come out. And inside remaining are 3 and x. So they are now all square roots of 3x, meaning they are all like terms. And on the outside are all x's as well. So I have 1x plus 2x, which makes 3x, square roots of 3x, minus 10x, square roots of 3x. So 3 minus 10 is negative 7x, square roots of 3x. And that's my answer on that one. So now moving on to 42. Again, we have parentheses with nothing between them, so we have to distribute. Treat these i's like they're x's. So 3 times 4 is 12. And I times I makes I squared. 3I times 5 is 15I. Negative 2 times 4I is negative 8I. And negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. So now I can combine like terms. Well, actually, first we need to remember I squared is negative 1. So that's really 12 times negative 1, which just makes it negative 12. Remember, I squared in essence, all it does is change the sign from being a positive to a negative, or if it's a negative, it changes it to a positive. Okay. So now I can combine like terms. Negative 12 and negative 10 make negative 22. Positive 15I minus 8I makes 7I. So 22 plus 7I, negative 22 plus 7I is my answer. On 43, I'm going to break these down first. So 4 is 2 and 2, so there's a pair of 2's, and the negative comes out as an I. So this is now 2I plus 3. This one is 4 and 2, that multiplies to be 8, and 4 is 2 and 2, so there's a pair of 2's that come out from that. So that's 2I because of the negative comes out as an I, and there's a 2 left in, square roots of 2 plus 5. That says plus 5. So now we're going to distribute. So 2I times 2I is 4I squared, and this square roots of 2 just comes along for the ride. 2I times 5 is 10I. 3 times 2I is 6I square roots of 2. Because the square root of 2, there's nothing to multiply it with, so it just comes along. 3 times 5 is 15. So now we remember the I squared is a negative 1. So what this does is it makes it a negative 4 square roots of 2. So now I'm looking, this is a 10I, this is 6I square roots of 2, and a plus 15. So this one has a square root of 2, but it has an I. This doesn't have an I, so I can't combine it. This has an I, but not a square root of 2, so I can't combine with anything. So that's as simple as my answer gets. There are no like terms, so there's not any terms that are alike. So that's my answer. I'm going to do the same thing with 44. None of these break down to have numbers that come out, so I'm just going to pull the I out of everything. So that's I square roots of 10 plus I square roots of 6. So before you multiply, you need to make sure you pull the I out. So that's I square roots of 2 minus I square roots of 3. And remember, the I is the negative under a square root. So as soon as you see a negative under a square root, you need to remember that comes out as an I. So now that I've done that, now I can distribute. So I'm going to take I square roots of 10 times I square roots of 2. So that's going to be I squared square roots of 20. Then I'm going to have I square roots of 10 times negative I square roots of 3. So that's negative I squared square roots of 30. Because the 10 and the 3 are both underneath, so I multiply them together. So now I'm moving to the next one. I square roots of 6 times I square roots of 2. So that's plus I squared square roots of 12. And now for the end, I square roots of 6 times I square roots of 3. And that's a negative and that's a positive, so that makes a negative I squared. Square root of 6 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 18. So now I'm going to break these down. 20 is 5 and 4. And 4 is 2 and 2, so there's a pair of 2's. They come out, and this I squared makes it so it is now a negative 2 square roots of 5. This I squared on the next one makes it turn into a positive, because I squared is really negative 1. So negative times a negative makes it a positive. 30 is 6 times 5, 2 times 3. So there's not a pair of anything, so that's just plus the square root of 30. This I squared, a positive and a negative, make it a negative. 12 is 4 times 3. 4 is 2 and 2. So minus 2 square roots of 3. This I squared comes out, makes that negative turn into a positive. 18 is 9 times 2, so 3 times 3. So there's a pair of 3's. So plus 3 square roots of 2. So I'm looking to see if I have any terms that are alike. This is a 5, that's a 30, that's a 3, that's a 2. Nothing is the same, so I do not have any terms that are alike. So no like terms, so that's my answer. So moving on to question number 45 now. So it's the same thing. We're multiplying. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times negative 7i is negative 21i. And now we're going to multiply the 2i to everything. So 2i times 5 is 10i. 2i times negative 7, positive times a negative is a negative 14. I times I makes I squared. Remember the I squared, in essence, what it does is changes this negative from a negative to a positive. So the I squared is gone. The negative 1 has been brought in. It's changed the sign. So now I can combine like terms. 15 plus 14 is 29. Negative 21 plus 10 makes a negative 11i. So that was 45. 46, same thing, except this is a plus. So we don't have to distribute because it's a plus. We're just going to add like terms. So 2 plus 3 is 5. 5i plus a negative 4i makes just plus I. Same thing down here. This is now a minus between them. So now I just subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2. Negative 3i minus 4i. So it looks like this. Negative 3i minus 4i makes negative 7i. This one is a subtract as well, so I don't have to multiply. And I combine like terms. So 3i minus 2i is just I. $49. So that's a minus still, so I combine like terms. 3 minus 7 is negative 4 minus 5i. On 50, notice that there's nothing between these, so that's when I have to distribute. So on 49 and the others, it had a minus. Now, if it would have been a parenthesis like that around the negative 7, then I would have distributed. But since it wasn't, it means I just distribute on here, but over here I subtracted 7 because it was not in parentheses. And this has nothing between them, so that means automatically multiply. So if there's nothing between the parenthesis and the numbers, you multiply. If there's a sign between them, like this was a minus, you subtract. So anyways, 2i times 3i is 6i squared. 2i times negative 5 is negative 10i. Remember the I squared, it makes the things that are positive go negative. So since this is a positive, it's going to make it go negative 6 minus 10i. On 51, so math people, it's a general rule that we don't leave a square root on the bottom of a fraction. And since I equals the square root of negative 1, that's saying we have a square root on the bottom of a fraction. So we can't do that. So to get rid of it, we multiply by what's called its conjugate pair. So it's its twin, but just the opposite. One's negative, one's positive. Whatever I do to the bottom, I must also do to the top. So now I have parentheses next to parentheses, which means we need to multiply. So 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4i is 8i. Negative 5i times 3 is negative 15i. Negative 5i times 4 is negative 20i squared. But remember, this I squared, it just comes out and attacks this negative and makes it turn into a positive. So that gets rid of the I squared. So see, the I squared is gone. The negative is now positive. So 6 plus 20 is 26. 8i minus 15i is negative 7i. So that's the top part of this. We have to do the whole thing now for the bottom. So you thought you were done, but that was just the top part that we did. So now for the bottom, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4i is 12i. Negative 4i times 3 is negative 12i. And negative 4i times positive 4i is negative 16i squared. So again, the I squared and the negative makes that positive 16. So 9 and 16 make 25. And 12i minus 12i, that makes 0. They just cancel each other off. That will always happen with the conjugate pairs. So every time we have conjugate pairs, these middle terms will go away. They'll always be opposite of each other. Okay, they'll always cancel each other off. And that leaves me with my answer. So now to do 52, I multiply it by its conjugate pair. So I multiply 3 plus 5i by 3 minus 5i. And if the top doesn't have i's in it like number 51 did, I'm not going to worry about distributing that 17 in. I'm just going to do the bottom stuff. So 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times negative 5i is negative 15i. 5i times 3 is positive 15i. So those go away. And the negative goes with it. And 5i times negative 5i is negative 25i squared. But again, remember I squared is negative 1, so negative and negative make a positive. So 9 plus 25 is 34 on the bottom. And on the top I have 17, 3 minus 5i. You could almost leave it, but not quite. 17 and 34 are each divisible by 17. So 17 divided by 17 is 1. 34 divided by 17 is 2. So it's 3 minus 5i all over 2. On 53, I'm going to multiply it by its conjugate pair. So 7 plus 5i and 7 plus 5i. So on the bottom, 7 times 7 is 49. I know that 7 times 5i and negative 5i times 7 are going to go away, so I'm not even going to write it down. And then I have negative 5i times 5i makes negative 25i squared. But we know from a lot of doing this that this makes negative 1. Negative 1 and a negative make a positive, so I have 49 plus 25, which makes 74 on the bottom. And on the top, we have 2 times 7 plus 5i. Since this ends in a 4, I know that it's divisible by 2. So this is divisible by 2, which makes 1. And 74 divided by 2, just to make sure we do this right, 74 divided by 2 is 37. So this is 37. So my final answer is 7 plus 5i all over 37.